Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Brothers and sisters, thank you so very much for joining us on Faraj podcast. Today we're going to be tackling a whole new topic. Our Tarbiyah Discussions, or a series, are going to be regarding child upbringing, parenting, and all that fun stuff. In the studio with me, I have the honor and privilege of hosting my dear sisters in faith and humanity, Sister Sabira. Assalamu alaikum wa
Wa alaikum
rahmatullah.
assalam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
And Sister Siddiqa. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to the viewers again for tuning in. These topics are nothing short of exciting, truly. And today we're going to be discussing what is parenting really and how to navigate that new world. It's not like, children come with their own manual books or anything. And especially for first-time parents, it can be so hard and complicated and intimidating and anxiety provoking because you're responsible for a whole human now.
Yeah, exactly.
So, why do you think it's important for us to discuss this topic, really?
Like you said, it's like a new human in your hands, and you have to just bring this little creature. You have to take care of his or her psychological, emotional, mental health, and physical health, and so much more.
And spiritual health.
Spiritual health, exactly. That is why it's important, because this new being is given to you by Allah as an amana. It's not like we can just do what we want. There is a manual, but again, it will be different for
one child to the other.
Yeah, exactly. You cannot repeat what happened with you and think, okay, I'm just going to do what my mom did, or I'll just do what the television says. It's like experimenting, doing trial and errors, and you will make mistakes. Parenting is not about being a perfect parent. It's about being consistent and also keeping in mind what is your aim. What are you, looking at? What is your role as a parent given to you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And also considering that this creature is your responsibility. You cannot just do experiment to the extent that, you spoil it and say, okay, let's try again.
Better luck next time.
Yeah, so that's not going to happen. So we have a lot of theories about how to parent, and you'll hear different theories, different concepts, different ways. Like, in the 1990s, let's say, it was all about behavior. Let's control the behavior, make the child listen. All kinds of behaviorally focused.
Obey,
How to make your child listen to you, But now there is a shift, a huge shift, where it's more about the parent than the child. The child comes to you to parent you. That is why it's called parenting. It's not called childing.
True.
Yeah, it's not like you have a written script that you want the child to play. Sometimes before even the child is born, right, we are doing things like, okay, we buy them, their clothes, and we decorate the room, but we are also building dreams that this is how my child is going to be. I'll make this child hafiz, I'll make this child become a doctor, I'll do this, I'll do that. My child will be someone who, is respectful. And then the child comes and it's exactly the opposite. And that is where you get triggered. Because your own dreams were built on something that's to do with you. It's not to do with the child.
Right.
The child comes with his or her own fitrah. And as parents, our role is to explore and accept the child as they are. And that is, I think, difficult.
It is. Because they came from us, we feel like they are us, but it's important to acknowledge the fact that they're their own human being.
Exactly.
So I'm so glad you brought up those keywords, because you said it's parenting, right? So I guess it's safe to have the follow-up question of what is conscious parenting and how can we do that?
Yeah. As the word says, conscious, right? It's about the parents being cautious of themselves. So the idea is that we are going to accept ourselves as we are, accept our children as we are, without manipulating or controlling the child. So it's a relationship like any other relationship. Like, when you talk about friendships, when you talk about your spouse, we always think of being respectful to each other, there's give and take, there's understanding, there's empathy. But when it comes to our children, we think it's more like a transition than a relationship from top to bottom. Like, I'm in charge, I rule, I know better because I'm the adult, and I'll control or manipulate the child. That might work for the first few years because the child is, very dependent on you. But the minute they start having their own minds, God, gives them builds their brains, their prefrontal cortex, which is to do with thinking, making decisions, all that is being developed, and they start questioning, or they start rebelling, or they start doing things that are not approved by you. That is when all the problems start. So from the beginning, if you work on the relationship, if you're aiming towards building that relationship, all the rules, all the values that you want to transmit will come along. But if you don't work on the connection, if you think there's no need to connect and I'll just correct, correction over connection, it's not going to last long, because that's not why you were made a parent.
Right.
So cautious parenting is more about looking inside you. Okay, what is it that the child does triggers me? It's not about me. Sometimes I ask my clients to say, okay, just fill in the blanks. I am stressful when in relation to parenting. And 99% it's like when my child does this, when my child does that, when my child doesn't listen to me. And then I tell them, okay, now use I language. So then they start thinking, okay, when I feel helpless, when I feel, triggered by my child's behavior. So it's about you, right? You have to first see it that it's not about the child. The child is just being a child. You can't expect a child to be a robot and just sit in one place or just listen to yes mama all the time. That's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And if it's triggering you, you need to work on yourself. And once you do that inner work, once you are more reflective, you're more cautious about your emotions, let's say, the child will automatically feel safe to be a child, right? Sometimes what happens, our relationship with our own emotions. Let's say when I was growing up, I wasn't allowed to be angry, or being angry was scary, or other emotions. Like if, let's say, sadness. When I cried, I was told, oh, there's nothing to cry about.
Don't be such a baby.
Yeah, why are you being a baby? So my relationship with different emotions is what I need to work on with. Why? Because if I feel that, it's not okay to be angry, I'll get triggered the minute my child starts screaming or
because my emotions were never validated. I don't give my child that right to have their emotions seen and felt. And
or the other way around. Sometimes what happens is, let's say if your parents were very strict, you decide, oh, this is, I'm going to be the cycle breaker and I'm going to be
the coolest parent ever.
So what happens is, again, you do the complete opposite and you become a parent who's very micromanaging. Where wants to be that perfect parent that she's micromanaging everything. Like, what is the child doing? Oh, should I allow her this, or should I not? When they go to their friends, I have to ask their moms, what are they going to eat? What are they going to watch? Micromanaging everything. Again, that the child will feel, as if he or she is under a microscope, being observed and controlled again, right? It's again the control. So the controlling aspect is to do with me. I have this need to control this little human being, because this little human being should fit in my script of how my child should be.
So, Sister Sadiqa, I was wondering if you have any insight to add to this whole concept of conscious parenting, and whether Islamic literature, you feel, has any say on that?
Interestingly, we do. So I have a book that looks at, it's a compilation of the hadith on children. So Ayatollah Ray Shahri has compiled 500 hadith just on the concept of children and how different types of upbringing, love, punishment, and from different angles and how we approach them. So when it comes to conscious parenting, like you mentioned, there's an interesting hadith from Imam Ali alayhi salam where he says, I'm not going to read the Arabic out here, but he says in the English translation would be, be like a friendly physician who applies medicine where it is useful. So it's the same concept. It's when we look at it, a physician is one who's mastered the art of the field. They're experts in what they do. And they only apply the medicine where it is needed and where it is useful. So a parent who's like a physician with multiple children, they have to, according to this hadith, they have to be exactly in accordance to the child's needs and not go outside of the. So every child has different needs. So a physician, just as they would apply the correct medicine in the correct dosage for different patients who also might suffer from the same disease, a parent should be like that physician who would take care of each child's needs and apply and give them the upbringing that is in accordance with their needs and with their temperament. So that is one hadith that is quite interesting, and it does verify exactly what you're saying. Except a lot of the times when we look at hadith, we do not look at it from a psychological perspective. It's just, okay, this is what the Prophet said, this is what Imam Ali said, and that's it, and we leave it. But when we start comparing Islamic literature with psychology, we see a lot of these things do have a good connection between them. In one of your parts as well, you were talking about how we need to work on ourselves as well before we start to parent, so we see what is within us, and not to expect a lot from the child at any point. And we have hadith to that extent as well. It's a hadith in Kafi where the Prophet was asked, how do we help our children in obedience? And he says, accept the little that the child can do, forgive what he can do, what he cannot do not overburden him, and do not ask him to do things too hard for him. And the hadith continues, but this shows that we can't put our expectations on the children, like you said. It's more about the child and what they need to go ahead in life, how they need to become, for example, the perfect Muslim or the perfect human. It's not about what we want from the children, it's about what they need from us.
And it's also about, I think, keeping in mind how different children come with different capacities. Sure, you might have a kid that's an actual genuine genius, and can go off to be a doctor and engineer and king of the world. Good on you. But you can't expect the same from your other kid. Maybe your other kid is a really good artist, a really good cook. Maybe they are really great with animals. And yeah, parents should definitely pay attention to this important factor. Since we are talking about how different kids and different capacities, and we should be conscious of that, and conscious of, not projecting our own insecurities, our own problems, our own trauma onto our children, breaking the cycle, but in a logical, practical way. I guess we can also ask, what are the different styles of parenting, right? Yeah. And also, follow-up question, would the way I was raised affect how I raise my kids?
Yeah. That's a very good question. When we talk about parenting styles, so, different psychologists have divided parenting styles differently, but mainly whenever, we talk about styles, there are like 4 main styles. The first one is authoritarian. From the word, you can say there's a lot of authority, a lot of expectation, very strict parents who want to, control their child, and very, rules are very rigid, and they want things in a particular way. That's authoritarian.
So they're basically running a military camp.
Exactly, yeah. And the other type is completely opposite, which is the permissive parents. So very, lenient, laid back, whatever the child is doing, it's okay. They're more of friends than parents. But friends, again, parents are supposed to be parents, and they are supposed to be responsible for the child's upbringing. They cannot be friends, especially in the younger years. Children need to feel safe. They need to know that their parents can actually manage them. Their parents are in charge. Not in control, but in charge. There's a difference, yeah.
Right.
So when they are in charge, it's more like, they're responsible for the children. They know how to make the child feel safe, loved, and take care of their needs. So permissive parents are basically, very soft, and they're unable to have
There are no boundaries.
No boundary, exactly,
right?
yeah. So, for instance, if one or both parents are physically unavailable, the child is just being brought up in, with the television, or the iPad is bringing up the child. So, there will be consequences.
Obviously.
And it also could be that the mother is physically present but emotionally absent. We have cases when children are brought up with parents, or mother especially, the mother is depressed. Let's say their research is showing consequences when the child grows up. They're emotionally not being able to express themselves because they had a mother who couldn't do that. Like, for instance, children are very expressive. They want their mother's attention, and if she cannot give that child, the child might feel confused, or maybe
Shut off.
Yeah, they'll stop
Isolated.
expressing themselves.
Right.
So this is the third one. The fourth one is authoritative, which is the best.
How is this different from the first one?
So that is authoritarian, yeah. Authoritative is when you as a parent are in charge, are responsible for the child's safety, for their basic needs, protection, love, affection. But when you are defining the boundaries, it is in a loving way. Like we say, loving but firm. So there's a balance between being permissive and being strict.
Right.
When that balance is there, when you're able to do that, that is authoritarian.
So basically, you don't let your kid walk all over you,
Yeah.
but also you don't walk all over your kid too.
Exactly. Like when we say, okay, I let my child do whatever they want. I let my child, for instance,
Talk to me however way they want.
So we think it's a good thing, but it's not, because children
Need structure.
They need that routine. Like one day you're letting the child stay up till, I don't know, 10 p.m. The next day you expect the child to, get in bed at 8. So there is inconsistency. Children will not find it safe. They will feel that, okay, my parent is actually not a parent. They're not in charge. And they might even become the parentified child when the child becomes the parent, making the decisions and, taking care of mom's emotions and dad's emotions. That is, again, another whole new,
chapter,
a whole
form of trauma of its own. Sister Siddiqa, I'm pretty sure there are a hadith on this topic as well, different styles of parenting. Oh, we should get back to like how my upbringing affects my parenting as well. But before we do that, how does the Quran or the ahadith or the sunnah define the styles of parenting for us?
So when we look at the different sources that have compiled, so there are different types of parenting that we have in the world, but one of them has been accepted by studying the Islamic sources. I'm just going to go through. It might be different in terms, but it's almost the same thing. So we have the parenting that's based on strictness that can result in children being shut off from the world and feeling depressed and anxiety, or trying to cater to other people's emotions rather than their own. Or another one is based on kindness and lack of strictness. So it's all love, but no
boundaries, no structure.
And these are just the different types of structures that Ayatollah Ray Shahri has outlined. But the one that I'll mention, the Islamic one at the end. Then there's one that's a lack of kindness and lack of strictness. So the child does not feel that love. Children need love, right? That's what they live off. If you offer a child love, they will become your servant, and they will do anything and everything that you want. And lack of love, lack of strictness, kind of puts them in a vacuum with no place of just letting go of those emotions. They have no security on one side, but they don't have any sort of structure on the other side.
Yeah.
And the fourth one he outlines is based on affection and decisiveness. But the one that he recommends that is based on Islamic scripture is the upbringing method based on love, strictness, and dignity. So on one hand, you love a child, but not to the extent that it makes them neglectful of the duties to the parents and to the world. Strictness to give them the security that they need, and dignity. If you want your children to respect you, you also must respect them, because children mimic what we do. And there's a hadith to this extent as well, where it says, where if you want to be a leader, first you have those qualities within yourself. You portray those qualities in yourself, then only will your child follow you. So if you if you act dignified towards your child will reciprocate those same feelings. And in Islam, there is a method of sort of going through this, and this is a very interesting one that we have. The parenting method is different according to the age of a child. So that in Islamic scripture, the parenting method that you would have for the first 7 years is very different to the second 7 years and to the third 7 years. So the first 7 years is the child is given a bit more freedom to explore the world around them, which is why he's a master for 7 years. That does not mean that you let them learn loose and go crazy, but just more about let them explore the world around them. So once they've explored the world, the next 7 years is he's a servant. Now he's explored the world. Now he needs to obey his parents. And the third 7 years is where he's a minister. He's explored the world. He's been a servant. He's obeyed everything. Now he has to practically implement whatever he's learned for the first 14 years of his life. Mm-hmm. So that's the way Islamic scripture goes when it divides the phases of a child upbringing, and how a child should be dealt with in different phases. So the first 7 years would be one, but you can't keep on going the same way for the next 21 years.
Because then your kid will be spoiled rotten. So it's important, I think, to create that balance when we're dealing with our kids. Love them, but not to a point where they're spoiled rotten. Be strict with them, but not to a point where they lose their sense of identity. They have to constantly repress and bottle up their emotions, where they feel like they have no freedom, they have no independence. And number 3, in a dignified manner, where they can develop that self-respect, self-esteem, and also, learn to respect other people too. Obviously, this needs so much unpacking. I mean, we can add examples, we can add personal experiences, but we're short on time. So this is all great in theory, right? Like a bunch of moms sitting around and saying that, yeah, I'm going to love my kid and I'm going to be strict and set rules and boundaries and limits, but then also I'm going to respect my child so much that they're going to feel like they are somebody in this world. But then daddy comes around and he's like, nah, that's not how I see things. So how do we deal with that? How do we deal with situations? Maybe it's not the whole general big picture. Maybe there are even little details. How do we deal with situations where parents aren't on the same page?
So when it comes to parenting, obviously it's a shared project. It's not just mom's project or dad's project, inshallah. What happens is just expecting that it's not going to be both of us on the same page. Like, social media perhaps tells you, we are on the same page and it's been all lovely and rosy. It's not going to happen. So just expecting that, yes, we will differ. And yes, our parenting, like, the question that you asked before, how the way I was parented will impact. Yes. So we can combine these two things. So the dad has been brought up in a completely different way. Mom has been brought up in a completely different way. Even if they're cousins, they're brought up in a completely different way, right? And the way they see the world, the way they experienced, their childhood, their, being a child, being an adolescent is going to impact the way they're going to be as a parent, right? No matter how hard we try that, okay, this is how I'm going to go by the book and do everything, you're not going to do it. You will get triggered. All of us have examples of, sounding like our moms. For instance, I hear so many parents saying, this happened, and then I said ABC, and it was exactly what my mom would have said. And then when we reflect, we are like, we are actually parenting on autopilot sometimes. We are not really thinking conscious. We are not, again, cautious, right? So when that happens, when you think you're doing what your mom did, and at that time as a child, you actually did not feel good when mom said that, right? Let's say if you get triggered. Or, things like, okay, the child is, let's say, pulling his or her sibling's hair. And the minute you see it, you get triggered and you say, stop, right? Now, that stop was exactly what mom would say. Stop. No, don't do this. Don't do that.
You yell and scream, raise your voice.
And that is something that most of us do. It just comes out, right? But if I'm not being cautious about it, I'll continue that. And it's going to make the child more rebellious. You must have seen when you say no to the child says, okay, I'll do more of it and I'll trigger my mom. So
The kids are like usually challenge accepted.
so yeah, but you know what? We see it as the child is triggering me or the child makes me angry. That means that you don't have power. That 4-year-old,
Has
this
more power
is
over
more
you.
power than you, 30 plus years or whatever. You are giving that impression to the child that, hey, child, you are in control. I'm not. When you say things like, you should not do this. Don't make your mom angry. Don't make your dad angry. The child feels powerful. Wow, I have the knowledge or the capacity to make adults angry, and they actually don't know what to do with their anger. Yeah, so it is us who need to be more in charge, right? Like I said, it's us who need to be in charge. If I know my triggers, that this is what triggers me, when the child does XYZ, it triggers me. Okay, now what shall I do? Once you recognize the triggers, you will work on yourself. So okay, I'll not say no, stop it. Then what, right? So there is a way to communicate. It's about, okay, don't look at what the child is doing, because that is usually parents focus on the what, pulling the hair or throwing things, or I don't know.
Acting out, stomping their feet.
So it's the behavior should not be what we need to focus on. It's the why. Why is the child doing that? Okay, let's say if he or she is pulling the younger sibling's hair, maybe this child is jealous. Maybe this child is not getting enough attention. Maybe he wants my reaction. Whatever it is, I need to go to the why.
And control and manage the situation.
Yeah. And when I talk to the child, first I have to, there are different ways. So one of them is validating the child. Like, let's say when it comes to screen time, right? Most of us say, okay, it's enough. Switch off the TV. The child is not going to do that. Even we as adults get hooked and we say, okay, I'm going to check a few messages in 5 minutes and I'm going to, that's it. And
before you know it,
it's 1 hour gone, right? Then how do we expect the child to just switch off the minute we say? So, okay, empathizing. I know, you really want to watch for more than 10 minutes, or, you want to watch more, but we had agreed, so please give it to me. Not please, but okay, you need to switch it off in another 10 minutes or whatever you had agreed on, right? That is one way. When it comes to saying no to something, like, the first example, don't pull your hair, don't do that. Give them options, or give them a way that their answer is going to be yes. For instance, if the child is pulling the hair, we can tell them, okay, let's try, giving a pat. Let's do this. Instead of saying the no, give a replacement that is positive and use positive language. And that's not going to be possible for everything.
your
Depends
kid is
on
about to walk into a bonfire.
Yeah, again, safety, and you have to be careful. Like let's say the child wants to drink, I don't know, the foam in the bathtub. That's not where you say,
no.
I know you really want to try it on. No, you're not going to say that. You are going to be more proactive, but not in a way that is going to it's not from a place of I'm triggered and I'm doing it. It's more of a place of calmness.
Sympathy.
Yeah, calmness but firmness, right? When we get triggered and lose it, like we call it, it's usually to do with our childhood, like the way we were treated, or and I have to say that I'm not blaming any parents. They did their best. And even when we try doing our best, still they will not be
mess up a
happy.
little, yeah.
It's okay. It's okay to mess up. Like I said, there is no perfect parent, perfect mothering, because that again has become such a big challenge. We are reading so much. We are looking at reels that how to be a cautious parent. And when we don't do that, we feel guilty. That guilt again may stop you from being your authentic self or just understanding the child. Do your best and leave the rest to Allah. Right?
That's a very good point,
Yeah.
actually. Do your best and leave the rest to Allah. Because at the end of the day, they're the creations of Allah, just as you are.
Yeah.
And He definitely cares about them more than you do.
Yeah, and when you asked about not being on the same page,
Yes.
right? That is again just expecting that we are not going to be on the same page, but in front of your child, you're supposed to be again in charge.
A team.
Yeah, a team, exactly. So if you disagree, don't disagree in front of the child. If you disagree, talk about it. Okay, this is the way I think we should do it. Again, it's a we. It's a teamwork. You two are on one side, the child is on the other, right? It's you two trying to parent this creature. It's not like my way. You say, no, I am right and you're wrong. And he says, no, my way is right, right? It's about, okay, this is what I think. What do you think? Okay, what can we do about
Put
it?
our brains together.
Put our brains together. Because imagine if a child sees you both on different tracks, right? So obviously the child is smart. They will know exactly where to go to when they need that extra chocolate, when they need that extra, screen time, whatever. They know it, right? So again, keeping let's say a negotiable basket and a non-negotiable. So there are things that you're okay with, you don't
Flexible.
Yeah, you're flexible. You can allow your partner who is more, soft and lenient to, be okay. You should be okay with it because it's something that's okay, happens, okay, not happens is also fine. It's not going to ruin the child's future or something drastic. But if there are things like, let's say, it could be our religious values, it could be screen time, it could be no sugar or little bit sugar. Again, with sugar, let's say, okay, you don't allow the child candy, but you're okay with one candy a week or a day, not a week, a day. Then it's, that's your negotiable, which is fine. Like, it doesn't have to be like an army base, right?
It's not black and white.
There should be some flexibility.
Wiggle room.
But communication is the key. When we don't communicate, what happens is we are just assuming that, my spouse doesn't really understand or doesn't even care or is like my enemy, right? But it's not that. Both of you love the child. Both of you want the best for your child. It's just based on your experiences, you will be different. And that's okay.
Right. So teamwork, ladies and gentlemen, and also some flexibility in areas that allow it. But then, like you said, there are some things, some topics, some issues that you got to go all out, like our religious values, the child's actual physical health or mental health at that moment, or like whether or not they turn out to be good moral people. I think akhlaq and adab in a lot of instances where some parents are trying to be more lenient and try the whole gentle parenting thing, the adab kind of just goes out the window because, they're like, oh, let the child be a child, let them, be free and unfiltered as they are. But, well, they're going to have a rough time in society afterwards. So you're just ruining this kid's future without actually wanting to. Do you have anything to add regarding this whole issue with parents not being on the same page?
Yes, actually. So a lot of times it's always going to happen in marriage. Before kids, after kids, you're never going to be on the same page. A lot of the times.
100%.
But in one of the hadith from the Prophet, he says, a pious person will not be taunting, doesn't criticize, doesn't blame or talk ill of others. So a lot of the times, even if you have conflicts, like you said, communication is key. You don't need to, a lot of the time when you have argument, it goes to taunting, it goes to everything that happened for the past 15 years. And we all have to bring it in one sitting. So, and that's what I believe it does. They don't taunt. They don't taunt the other for their mistakes. They don't criticize for our mistakes because just the way I make mistakes, the spouse as well makes mistakes. No blaming as well or talking ill of others. And a lot of the times when we argue in front of our children, these children, they're born on a pure fitrah. They do not know lying, they do not know bad mouthing, but when they see the parents doing it, they start to act on that. So a lot of times when you see kids, they will never lie. They're unfiltered when they talk. They will say anything and everything that comes to the mind because they do not know how to go through society. But when they see the parents bad-mouthing others, or if they see the spouse bad-mouthing, or they see the father or the mother bad-mouthing the other parent, they learn to do that as well, not only with their own future spouse, but with their friends, their other families, because for them now gossiping and taunting and blaming becomes the norm. Well, my parents did it, so it shouldn't be that bad, because in the first few years of their life, they see their parents as the one who gives them sustenance. So they're the highest on that level. For them, the parent is on the highest level possible. They do not see anything above the parent. Even though they know the concept of Allah, they do not the parent is on the highest level imaginable for them. They look up to the parents. So if the parent does taunts and criticizes in that moment of heat, the children will definitely act on it. And that's why the Prophet says a pious person does not taunt or blame or criticize or talk ill of others. And when it comes to children as well, and when it comes to, like you said, talking to them, talking through with the children as well, we even have hadith to the extent where Imam Ali says, avoid reprimanding constantly, for this act provokes the committing of sin and belittles a real reprimanding. So basically, just like you said, kids, if you reprimand them, they will go and do the same thing over and over and over again because they've seen what ticks you off. And it goes to adults as well. If I don't like, if I want my way around, and if someone's going to constantly reprimand me, I'm going to do exactly what ticks them off. And that's why Imam Ali says, do not over reprimand, because reprimand only where it is required, not in every case. Not every case must we go and shout at the kid and be like, no, no, no.
So pick your fights, basically.
Pick your fights. And with kids, it doesn't have to be all the time. Like you said, there's some places where it's negotiable, some places where it's not negotiable. Some of the non-negotiable places, okay, fine, you can explain to the child, but reprimanding for each stage as well has for each phase of life, there's a different type of reprimanding as well. So, for example, Imam Ali in another way, in another hadith, he says, if you reprimanded a youth, leave him for some room for his excuses concerning his fault. So even when you reprimand a child, it would be a different way. It would be through love and kindness and communicating, because they've just entered this world. They need to understand the social construct of the world. But for a youth who's lived through 15 years of his life, allow him to find a way out of his mistake. Give him some room to make excuses for his mistake, even if they might not be valid, but give him some room to maintain some of his dignity.
And redeem themselves.
Yes, and give them a chance to redeem themselves. Then, in the continuation of the hadith, it says, lest he would be drawn to coarseness. So if you don't give them any room to wriggle out, if they feel over guilty, then they might just go off on the wrong path. Then you can't bring them back.
Exactly. I can't do anything right ever, so why bother?
Exactly. I'm going to go to hell anyways.
Exactly.
I might as well enjoy my life.
Might as well enjoy. So, yes, choose your battles is what I wanted to say. I'm so sorry my brain malfunctioned for a second, and we are out of time. Thank you so very much, sisters, for your very helpful and beneficial input. And thank you so very much to our viewers for being with us. Make sure to tune in to further episodes on YouTube and share your thoughts, questions, comments, opinion, anything you might have in the comment section below with us. Until next time, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.